So, I've made plenty of videos in the past where I've had Mahoraga face a variety of threats, from Accelerator to Berserker. I've argued Mahoraga will lose to all of them, and to be honest, I was sort of looking down on the big raga and didn't really consider them all that strong compared to others in fiction. That was until Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo released, when we saw Mahoraga more powerful than any other iteration before. Powered by the Death Binding Vow by Yuka Okkotsu, this version of Mahoraga quickly jumped to become a top 5 character in the entire verse. And with that said, I want to reevaluate some of my old Mahoraga matchups to see if anything would really change. Right off the bat, there's very little ways Gilgamesh can lose this battle. I mean, he'd actually have to intentionally let Mahoraga adapt. Gilgamesh, with his Gates of Babylon, can summon any weapon from his treasury, each with their own powers, meaning he has nigh on infinite ways to beat Mahoraga. The only way Gilgamesh loses is if he's more arrogant than usual, and he plays around with Mahoraga's healing until eventually just adapts to his existence. But again, it's very unlikely that that would happen. Gilgamesh has incredible battle intelligence and overall wisdom on many things in mythology, just like Sukuna. The spinning of the wheel, healing, and Mahoraga's odd shifts in behavior should allow Gilgamesh to quickly deduce its ability to adapt to any phenomena. It will only take for him to pull out Ea or another high damage noble phantasm to erase Mahoraga from existence. Okay, I'll be honest, there's absolutely no world where Accelerator loses. The guy on several occasions has shown the capacity to destroy the very planet, has intellect rivaling the greatest supercomputers, and has reflected every possible phenomena you can think of, from planetary attacks to literal, imaginary matter. So what exactly is Mahoraga supposed to do in this situation? There is one situation where it could win, but it's a stretch, so don't get mad at me if you don't like the sound of it. In order for Mahoraga to win, they need to battle the Sisters Arc version of the character. I mean, I know what you're thinking. This version of Accelerator can still destroy a planet without effort, and his intellect is still superior to many supercomputers around the world. However, he does have one big flaw that can be exploited, and that is his arrogance. Within the Sisters Arc, Accelerator is definitely at his most twisted and nonchalant. He especially loves to play around with his opponents for longer than necessary. So what would happen if he met Mahoraga? Well, seeing an 8-foot tall monster with wings for a face would probably put him on edge just a little bit, but it's realistic for him to assume that this is some twisted Academy City experiment. Mahoraga, being highly aggressive, will be the first to attack, in which he gets swiftly reflected by the barrier. However, the wheel would spin, and its wounds would instantly heal. Accelerator would definitely notice the wheel's turn, and Mahoraga healing, but it just wouldn't provide enough concrete info to just the kind of threat he's dealing with. Afterward, either Mahoraga attacks again, or Accelerator makes his first move. Either way, Mahoraga will likely take more damage and adapt. This second instance is the most critical event in this entire battle. Ideally, Accelerator gets annoyed and completely erases Mahoraga from existence with a really big plasma attack or a really big explosion. But even then, Mahoraga is incredibly tanky and has already adapted once or twice. The attack needs a crap ton of power behind it to erase every trace of his body, otherwise it can come back from even a tiny fragment. Ideally, Accelerator could figure out Mahoraga's ability is to adapt to any and all phenomena and erase him using that info. But unlike Sukuna, who witnessed Mahoraga parry one of his invisible attacks and witnessed Mahoraga use a different attack strategy after the turn of the wheel, Accelerator at this stage of the battle really has no evidence to be making such a huge leap. There's only one way he's gonna find out, and many of you are not gonna like what I have to say. If Accelerator doesn't catch on to Mahoraga's ability or plays around too much and somehow allows the wheel to turn 4 to 5 times, Mahoraga outright bypasses the reflector shield
and kills or mortally wounds Accelerator
in one hit. The guy can barely handle a punch from regular humans, but again, seeing how strong and intelligent Accelerator is, it's definitely a far-fetched scenario, but it isn't impossible, no matter how much I want to glaze him. Wonder Review is an interesting case because it's the most 50-50 situation here. The scale and power of Calamity is proportional to the amount of aggression the pursuer has. Mahoraga, being as highly aggressive as it is bound to be attacked by Calamity at a more frequent basis. But here's the issue: Calamity isn't always immediately lethal. and that can be a problem with an opponent as tanky as Mahoraga. Worse yet, any calamity it does survive will cause the wheel to spin, probably multiple times, within the first 2 to 3 minutes. At that point, it wouldn't take long for Mahoraga to adapt to the power of calamity itself. Mahoraga could be seen as a force outside the logic, a reason of the world, similar to the bubbles, or go beyond, allowing it to avoid being targeted by calamity. It will likely take only 5 to 6 spins of the wheel for this to occur, but it's very possible this doesn't happen. Why? Well, calamity can turn anything in the world into a weapon, and the damage they produce are far greater than the original concepts. For example, a light drizzle of rain can essentially become a shredder that turns Mahoraga into paste before it has the chance to adapt, or a plane could crash into Mahoraga, creating enough force to somehow atomize it. But again, this entire battle could essentially go either way. I once said in a previous video that Mahoraga vs Berserker would reach a state where neither side could really kill one another because they both adapt and become immune to each other's attacks. But after the new revelation, the Mahoraga can adapt to an opponent's existence itself. This means a situation like this simply can't happen. However, Berserker scales so much above Mahoraga that a situation like this probably wouldn't even happen. It's more than likely that Berserker could wipe Mahoraga off the face of the earth simply by hitting him. Reinhardt Van Estrella is in a similar boat. His ability to gain divine protections at a rapid rate means he can gain new buffs against Mahoraga, and in turn Mahoraga will rapidly adapt to any new attack or hacks. Obviously this fight wouldn't last more than 2 minutes, as Reinhardt can turn anything into a weapon that would atomize Mahoraga in seconds. However, what would happen if it was allowed to continue and Mahoraga began to adapt to Reinhardt's existence? Well, I'm not sure if that's possible. The divine protections Reinhardt gains could maybe be nullified by the adaptation, but Mahoraga shouldn't be able to do anything about Reinhardt's ability to revive. The power alongside the other protections are a product of Adlagna's power, so they would be considered a third party who wouldn't be attacking Mahoraga in any way. If Reinhardt keeps getting revived thanks to the power of the world, and Mahoraga somehow adapts to Reinhardt's existence, then they both be in a stalemate where neither side can really beat the other. It's sorta what would happen if Subaru never figured out how Regulus's powers worked. So Mahoraga is definitely more powerful than they give him credit for, but at the same time, his strength takes time to build, and many are capable of taking him down in one hit before they ever get the opportunity to adapt.